us right now from Ohio. How are things, first off, Senator, always good to have you. How are things going in your state with the coronavirus?
Thanks, Neil. Going pretty well compared to other states. We started early. In mid-March, Governor DeWine and the health director, Dr. Amy Acton, took a pretty aggressive approach to social distancing and shutting down businesses where people weren't permitted to gather. And it worked. So our peak is lower. It was actually spread out so that we haven't reached the peak quite yet, which give our hospitals a chance to get ready for the surge, which will be less of a surge now. So we're fortunate, having taken the right steps and people having done the right things, it will be less severe. However, we've got the same issue that every state does. How do you reopen? How do you help these hospitals get back into elective surgery so they can have some revenue coming in? How do you tell a small business that was shut down by government edict, it's time to reopen your doors, and how do they do that? I think one thing that's been missing in this, Neil, just to jump ahead to your next question probably is, I don't think it's between the governor and the president. I think it's up to individuals. I don't think people are going to go back to restaurants if they don't feel safe. I don't think folks will go back to work if they don't feel safe. I don't think parents will send their kids back to school if they don't feel safe. So I think this is a bigger issue just than us elected officials deciding when it's time and coming up with some arbitrary deadline. It's about the science, and it's about people feeling secure that if they do go back into the workplace or go back into places where people gather, that it will be safe. And that's why I think the testing is absolutely crucial.
That's probably the smartest thing I've heard on this getting back to work. Just we forget about the individuals involved and whether they feel comfortable leaving their homes, forget about going back to work, sending their kids back to school. I'm wondering, too, Senator, in this environment, whether people feel just nervous about whenever we time it or how we roll it out, or whether it's, different in different states and regions. I get that. We could leave out the constitutional argument, whether the president has the power to sort of just order this. He seemed to show a willingness to work with governors and others to coordinate a response. But for individuals, if the response is coordinated or not, how do you get them over their fear? They have to see cases go away, right? Not just increases in cases declining. And they have to see a hell of a lot more testing than we got now. It's dramatically improved in this country, don't get me wrong, but we need millions of more tests. And I think until we get that, aren't those individuals you talk about going to be leery of leaving?
I think it's a great point, Neil. And I think we need measurements, metrics. We talked about this a couple of weeks ago, that you need to have enough testing out there so there's meaningful data that says, hey, we got fewer cases than we had the previous day. We got fewer hospitalizations, fewer ICU patients, fewer fatalities. All of it seems to be the number of cases per day. When that starts to decrease, which is not happening yet in Ohio or in most places, Washington, D.C., it's not happening because we haven't reached the peak in those places yet. Then I think people will, based on the advice of the health experts, not those of us in an elected office, say, okay, it's been 2 weeks now since we've had fewer cases. Given the fact that people like Scott Gottlieb and others have indicated that 2 weeks is about the right time period, I think people will trust that. Doesn't mean you reopen everything at once, by the way. It means that you continue to have social distancing, you continue to wear masks, you continue to
all right, Senator, I apologize. We're having some audio troubles with you, Senator. I do apologize for that, but you made a number of profound points, not the least of which is the most obvious of all. I should have thought about it. Average individuals and how they feel. They're the ones who are going to decide, no matter what their governors or presidents say, no matter what their mayors say, whether they feel comfortable leaving those homes or trying to get back to some sort of a life as normal, whatever that will be now.